My girlfriend, 32F, and I, 31M, have been together for 7 years. We first connected in 2014, but it didn't work out then. We met again in 2017 and started dating in 2018. I still live with my mother, which I'll explain soon. The first couple of years felt magical. We were a new couple still figuring things out. I had an entry-level job. The pay wasn't great, but I had energy. I was romantic, writing songs, leaving her cute notes, and making surprises. I even sold some of my belongings, like game controllers and instruments, to buy a plane ticket to visit her when she was away for 3 months with her family. I flew there and we spent her last week together. When she returned, she was struggling with depression. She had wanted to stay abroad but felt forced to live in our country, in Eastern Europe, a post-Soviet nation with a challenging political situation and often rigid public opinion. I promised her that one day we would move to that country or another place we both loved. Like most couples, we had ups and downs, but eventually we settled into a stable routine. Because I lacked the money to move out, I lived with my mother. My father passed away when I was young. I used to think my mother was very understanding and saw her more as a friend than a strict parent. I realize now that this wasn't a normal dynamic, as I grew up without a father figure. I later learned that my mother was very controlling, manipulative, and jealous of me, but at the time, I mistook her control for care. To spend more time together, my girlfriend started staying at my small apartment with my mother. I worked full-time while she was unemployed, so she sometimes stayed for weeks. When I was at work, she was alone with my mom all day. My girlfriend started telling me that my mom, thinking she was asleep, was talking to a friend on the phone about us. I couldn't believe it and thought my girlfriend must have misunderstood parts of the conversation. We also adopted a disabled street puppy that needed constant care, which added stress. When my girlfriend was staying at my house, she and my mom would argue about the puppy. We felt the dog needed a different vet to get better. However, my mother handled all the logistics and got upset when we didn't trust her chosen vet. There were arguments, shouting, and times when my mother supposedly forced my girlfriend to walk the puppy. My girlfriend mentioned these incidents to me gently, and I dismissed them as minor disagreements. Around that time, my friends often came over. We would have friendly debates about issues in our country, and my girlfriend often held different, less conservative views than my friends. They seemed to side with my mother, and it often became 5 or 6 people against my girlfriend. I was foolish then and thought this was just normal conversation. One friend consistently teased her about her liberal opinions. I told my girlfriend he was just joking and not to get upset. However, she felt he disliked her, partly because he was very conservative and she was staying at my house without us being married. One evening, when we were at a different friend's house, that friend got drunk. He started shouting at my girlfriend for no reason and punched a table. I immediately forced him to stop. We then left and I ended my friendship with him. This was during the pandemic. I lost my old job and found a new one with slightly better pay, though I still couldn't afford rent. The workplace was incredibly toxic. People were let go for minor things like a 2-day fever, and employees often cried at their desks. We were all terrified of being fired during the pandemic when it was our only source of income, so we stayed. This toxic environment broke my mental health, which I believe is why I avoided conflict. I allowed my mother and friends to upset my girlfriend constantly without intervening. I should have been a supportive and protective partner but completely failed her when she needed me most. Eventually, the situation became too toxic, and she stopped staying at my house. Looking back, she endured more than anyone should. Whenever we discussed it, we ended up fighting because I defended my mother and thought my girlfriend was wrong. I failed her as a boyfriend and made her feel that she was not my top priority and that I would always side with my mother. After that, I started staying at her place and things calmed down. Everything seemed fine because she didn't have to see my friends or my mother, and we could spend time together, though she was also living with her mother and brother. I finally quit the toxic job. I found a smaller company with a lower salary but a much better atmosphere. This felt like a huge improvement. I thought everything was okay now. I could save money, and maybe my pay would increase so I could afford rent or a mortgage. Now, I understand that all of this created unresolved hurt for both of us. From today's perspective, I feel I betrayed her by never taking her side. I just stayed quiet and listened to the arguments. We continued like this for a couple of years. Because of my job, I usually visited and stayed at her house once a week. We rarely went out, and the relationship became boring for her. She is an artist, painter, who has always wanted to focus on her art, but has not had a stable career or job. Although my salary eventually increased, I still couldn't afford to rent an apartment. During my non-toxic job, I bought an inexpensive motorcycle, and riding it together was the only fun we had for a long time. We occasionally went to the cinema, bars, or visited her friends, but we mostly stayed at her house watching TV. Recently, I found a really good paying, remote job, good for my financial situation. I started to relax, as the job wasn't stressful anymore. I felt like I had a beautiful partner and my motorcycle, and everything would work out. I thought I'd save money and move out, but I wasn't rushing because I couldn't see any problems yet. I was living under the false belief that everything was fine. Then, one day, I went to see my former coworkers from the non-toxic job. I asked my girlfriend to come, but she declined, although she seemed to want me to stay with her. When I asked if she'd be upset if I went, she said no, so I went. She also went to see her friends. I still didn't realize what was truly wrong. After that day, everything deteriorated, though I now know things were wrong all along. She became distant, sad, and depressed. We tried to talk, and things improved for a short time, but eventually the conflict exploded. She brought up all the past hurts and how unsupported she felt. Our relationship was also boring. All these problems had piled up. I was suddenly faced with the realization that I was dependent on my mother. I felt comfortable living with her, despite knowing she disliked my girlfriend. I wasn't in a hurry to move out. I realize I'm a non-confrontational person who avoids conflict by never truly saying what I think. I found that whenever she needed support, I wasn't truly listening, and when I couldn't help, I avoided the situation entirely. I realized I had been a coward all this time, but only after the situation had gotten this far. My current situation is this. I love her very much. I understand how poorly I treated her and want to make up for my past mistakes. I'm trying to be more mature and supportive, learning to listen when she needs me instead of trying to fix her problems. I was very immature. She grew up and I stayed the same for years. Then I went completely silent for 3 days. She reached out at night and asked why I wasn't sleeping and told me not to worry and to take care of my sleep schedule. My last interaction was after that late-night text. The package she asked me to purchase few weeks earlier arrived, and I said I can drop it if you are free this evening. She said yes please and thanked me in advance. I've shared this story gently, but the actual arguments, traumas, feelings, and mistakes were much more intense. Please ask if you need more details before giving advice. When I got there we had a chill evening. She was sharing with me her arts and was asking which one do I like. She also told me that she feels better this last days because she thinks she was too attached to me. She was asking for my help in everything, like ordering food, taxi, top up phone balance, and etc. because she is not good with technologies, and the easiest option always was to ask me about any technological difficulties, and I was always happy to help. Then, couple of hours later, I said it's time to go. She hugged me quite a long time before I went. Then she texted me about her arts again and then told me, "Thanks for everything. I wish you were always like this." Me. Since I started thinking about things I realized a lot. Her, good for you. Me, good night, red heart. Her, you too, beating heart. So did she acknowledge my change? Can I really rebuild a healthy romantic relationship from here? TLDR. The 7-year relationship began with romance but became strained because I lived with my controlling mother and failed to defend my girlfriend from her or my conservative friends. My toxic job made me avoid conflict, and I constantly failed to support my girlfriend. She eventually stopped staying over, and the relationship became boring. I only recently realized my immaturity, cowardice, and dependence on my mother. Now that I've gotten a better job and started to change, she says her feelings have faded. She needs space and independence, and is depressed, leading me to fear the relationship is over. P.S. Sorry, had to use chat, but only because my English is trash. I really need advice because this is happening to me right now, and I'm very confused. Don't know what to do.